What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 40 of Dispersing the Cloud. I am incredibly late on this one. This is probably the most late I've ever been. It's about a week and a day late, so I apologize. I try to bust out 2 tonight. So I'm just going to hop right into it. So this is in reference to, just so we know which week we're talking about, because I have confused everybody by being so late. I'm sure when I say everybody, I'm talking to the 3 people who watch this and me when I watch this later down the road. I'm referencing the first week of October here, so we're talking about the 2nd through the 6th. I had some stuff lined up that I told you guys about in the last episode for that week. I was going to do a show up in Ukiah. That's where my brother and my sister-in-law live. That ended up falling through. My brother and his wife, they had a friend pass away and they were leaving town as I was coming into town. Plus it was on a Thursday night and it was very difficult for me to make that happen, so we scrapped it, and that kind of stinks, but it is what it is. I ended up booking 2 production gigs that weekend, so it turned out okay as far as cash flow goes. For a company called Hub, and they actually ended up shooting in, I think that one was in San Jose, and I got to go down and I got to hang out with my friend Amy and Tyler and spend some time with them and their daughter, so it all ended up pretty good. The process for that week is basically just like a roller coaster. If you guys have been following me the last 3 weeks, it's just been an up and down battle right now. Trying to get everything squared away. I got Project Double Down going on, and I'm trying to take on a full-time job next year for the first time in 3 years. So I've been self-employed for 3 years, and I'm making, I have a pretty good foundation of things I can quote-unquote sell. Or if you guys watched the episode with Rich Dad Poor Dad, we're talking about residual income, right? So I have an EP album. I'll release another book before the end of this year, and then I have Josh and the Sock Army still, and then I have the Flower of the Month deal that we're doing with Her Something Blue, which is hsbweddingplanning.com if you guys want to check that out and get in on that. So there's things that are going to provide me with residual income for next year, and then I always have weddings that I can play on the weekend. So it's just been an up and down battle for me to spend time putting in applications and making plans to actually go back to work. And it's just more of the same of what I'm doing, just going to have a more rigid schedule with what I can do. The interesting and the cool thing is now, when I first started this, I wasn't going to be able to, 3 years ago, I couldn't have jumped in and got a worship leader job at a church that pays a full-time salary. But now, being 3 years of doing this kind of on the road and playing music all over the place and having an EP and having that experience, now I can actually go get a full-time job that is music, that pays me a normal wage, and then do my other stuff on top of that, which significantly raises my income, which lets me do more projects on top of that. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm a little stressed about it. I haven't had a boss in 3 years, and I'm totally okay with having a boss. It's just going to be a little change of pace for me. So I'm actually eager to get started. It's just been an up and down journey for the last couple weeks. So I'm going to review 2 books. One I'm kind of blow through. It's called The God Ask. I'm going to jam through it because it refers to, basically, it was all about, if you're in full-time ministry, and maybe you're working for a nonprofit and you're going overseas and you're doing work like that and you have to self-fund yourself, then The God Ask is an amazing book to read. It gives you a lot of tools. If you're thinking of starting your own nonprofit, The God Ask is an amazing book to read. I took a bunch of notes on it for later down the road when I start my nonprofit, and it was amazing. But I'm going to blow through it real quick with some things that I think were applicable to pretty much anybody. If you focus on the root, he will bear the fruit. This was a cool one because it rhymed, but it was basically referring to foundation. If we focus on the foundation of what we're doing, then God will take care of the fruit. And I think I've been guilty of it even in my own ministry, like in my own music. Like, I want things to happen now, and a lot of times I don't focus on the why. I don't focus on Simon Sinek, start with why. I don't focus on the why I'm playing music. I had one of my friends ask me, like, what's your purpose? Like, what are you trying to do? And I said, man, I'm just trying to be heard right now. And maybe that's not the best approach, just trying to be heard. Maybe I should just focus on writing really, really, really good music, and let a full-time job pay my way until something takes off. And I think that's a little more practical at this point. And I kind of get to hack my life at this point, because I can do anything. I can go anywhere. I have no ties. So I'm on the hunt for a gig, and yeah. So that was an amazing quote. Let God, not the world, shape your perspective. I think this applies to me in a couple different ways. One, it takes a lot of perseverance to do what I've been doing for the last 3 years. I've been told by many people this is not practical, that it's not very smart, that I'm wasting my time, and I have a sneaky suspicion that in the next 2 years I'm going to take a leaping jump ahead of everybody, and everyone's going to wonder how that happened. I could be wrong, but I'm feeling really confident about it, especially with this move next year to double my income and produce twice as many projects, because I'll have twice as much cash flow. Actually, probably like 3 times as much cash flow. So not letting people shape my perspective of what I need to be doing. Having confidence that I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. And at the same time, being flexible to see opportunities that come up and be ready for them, and be ready to move, and be ready to be mobile and change your plan on a dime. Not the grand scheme, but I think it's important to be, because I'm versatile, because you've trained yourself to be versatile, it's very important that when opportunities in life come up, that you're able to move quickly and stay in the same direction, if that makes any sense. Life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how I react. And I think that goes along with what I was just saying about being mobile and being flexible and being agile in what you do. Life will happen to you. Unexpected things will happen. And when those unexpected things happen, sometimes they call for not a course correction, and not even a detour, but a lot of times it calls for an upping of the ante. It calls for raising the stakes. Gonna have a conversation with my brother actually this week. I probably should save it for the next video, because it's not it didn't happen during the week that we're talking about, but sometimes life throws things at you where literally it feels like God's asking you to double down. Like, hey, if you want this, then I'm going to require this of you. Like, right now you're doing everything I'm asking, but if you want the next level, then you got to produce double. And I think when those things happen, and when those opportunities jump in front of you, and you get challenged by something, it's a challenge for me to go back to work, because I love doing what I do. I mean, I was talking to another one of my friends. I feel like I'm just hanging out. I don't ever feel like I work. So it's going to be an extreme challenge for me to do that. But I think when life puts those things in front of you, you got to jump on them. If you're not willing to go all in on your vision, you can't expect other people to come alongside you. This was really referring to, one, I just love the quote, but this was referring to people who are doing a nonprofit, or they're doing missions, and they're not 100% sold on their idea. If you're not 100% sold on your idea, it's going to be very difficult for you to sit down with someone and get them to buy your service, or buy your product, or buy what you have going on, if you're not 100% sold on it yourself. I'm not sure I ever met someone who regretted choosing passion over prosperity. This is definitely uh, two different things that are highlighted in my life. One, obviously, my passion is music and writing books and telling stories. Uh, and another passion of mine is like business. Like I think it's cool, man. I think it's cool to start businesses. I think it's cool to try to be an entrepreneur and try to get these things to take off. And I'm interested by those things. And I think prosperity falls within something that I'm passionate about. If not passionate about, I'm interested in it, if anything. And so I think it's important to get a balance of prosperity is definitely not the mission. But I don't think we should ignore the highlights of it. I would shoot you guys back to the book Richest Man in Babylon. I think I've read that one 3 times this year. I'm probably going to read it again before the year's over. Side note, I think in the last video I said I was up to 60 books. I think I was counting books that I read twice. I think I've read The Alchemist 3 times this year. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad 3 times this year. I've read Richest Man in Babylon 3 times this year. And so I wasn't counting the books I've read. I was counting books I've read, plus every time I reread a book, I count that on my tally. That's something that, I forget what that dude's name is, but he was doing TED Talks about reading a book a day, and he's just talking about revisiting books and how important it is. If you could skip the process, would you? I'm going to be honest, I'd probably skip this process right now. In the roller coaster this last month has been, this has been on the downhill, but it's definitely going to end on a positive note in the end of October, and in the beginning of November. I have some awesome stuff lined up, and I'm super pumped about it. And I think it just comes with the territory of, ask anybody who started their own business, just of the roller coaster. You know, that's the whole theme of this episode. I think it just comes with it. You know, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be really, really low points and really high points. There's an awesome song by Teron, I think Teron Wells, and I posted it on my Instagram this week, actually, or next week, actually, for those of you keeping track. It says, when I'm standing on the mountain, I will bow my life to the one who sent me there, and when I'm walking through the valley, I will lift my eyes to the one who sees me there, because when I'm standing on the mountain, I didn't get there on my own, and when I'm walking through the valley, I know that I am not alone. Awesome song. You guys could check it out. It's called Hills and Valleys, but I think it's very applicable to what I'm doing right now and the roller coaster that is my last month. Okay. The next book is called The Genius of One. Super, super pumped about this one by Greg Holder. By the way, The God Ask, we're going to give it a 3.5 stars only because it only applies to people who are doing full-time missions or raising funds for nonprofits. But great book, 5-star book if that's your bag. Genius of One by Greg Holder. This book is basically off of the idea, not the idea, but the prayer that Jesus prayed, that his church would be one. That was actually Jesus' final prayer before he was crucified, is that his church body, the people, would be one. And if anybody who knows anything about Christianity, you would know that we are definitely not one. We are thousands of different denominations spread across the world that literally compete for attention with each other, from Catholicism to Baptist to Pentecostal to non-denominational is even one now. The Presbyterian, I can't even say that right now. To Orthodox, to Methodist, to all the above, and those are just a few. Yeah, it's just definitely far from what Christ prayed. Christians have basically forgotten how to love not only each other but the world as well, and I think it starts with each other. Christians can't even love on each other. If you've ever been into a church service where you have one preacher bagging on another preacher down the road, like, isn't that amazing how we can't even love each other and then we're expected to love the world? It blows me away that as Christians that happens. It's a lot of times, when I first started following Christ, I told people I wasn't a Christian for that very reason. Like, I was turned off by Christianity. I said, no, dude, I'm not a Christian. I'm a Christ follower. It's completely different. I follow Christ, but I'm definitely not a Christian, because what they've become is disgusting. Ecolid? I can't say, it's a Hebrew word. I thought it was really cool. I wrote it down, and now I can't read it. But it means one. It means like a basically like a encompassing body of one thought or one mind. And this was kind of the idea. So aspen trees actually share a common root system with the other aspen trees that are around them, and it's called a stand. I thought that was a really good analogy of what the church is actually supposed to be like. If there's different aspen trees, they're all aspen trees, but they share one root, one common idea. And the author of this book, Greg, that's what he's trying to get across with this book, Genius of One. You are only as sick as your secrets. This is actually a AA quote or application, but I think it relates to all Christians and all people. Secrets don't like our secrets. Our shame hates the light. It hates to be known. It loses its power when you tell people, actually. We have this fear inside of us that if people know our secrets, then they won't love us. Next week, I get to go, and I got a recording session set up for a new song called Secrets that I'm going to release next year, and it's right along this theme. When I was reading this book, that was kind of a marker for me. God just let me know, like, hey, you should be reading this book right now. You're not reading it by accident, and this is right in line with what you're talking about. And so the fact that I wrote that song, I feel like God gave me that song, and I read this book the next week, talking about our secrets and how when we let our secrets out, they lose their power. I thought that was amazingly powerful. How we do things is just as important as what we do. I think that kind of speaks for itself. Candor plays a huge part in working together. Frankness, being open, being honest plays a huge part in working together. But at the same time, being open and honest and loving and cordial, and he talks about ideas and how when we put ourselves or we put our ideas out there in a conference meeting and someone shoots them down right away, it discourages us from doing that again. And in a Christian organization, in their organization that they run, they're actually out of St. Louis, Missouri. And interesting fact about that, when the Michael Brown shooting happened, Greg Holder's church, and Greg Holder was actually the one who brought the community together to meet and talk about solutions for the police and the African American community. And they kind of, not negotiated, that's the wrong word, but they organized that meetup. And I believe they still meet today and still do that, which is pretty awesome. But he talked about how honesty in those situations was really, really good, but you had to be sensitive to other people's hurts and needs and wounds and all the above. This is just an awesome quote. Many people are looking for an ear that will listen. They do not find it in Christians because these Christians are talking when they should be listening. But he who can no longer listen to his brother will soon be no longer listening to God. In the end, there is nothing but spiritual chatter. That was Dietrich Bonhoeffer. That was an awesome quote, because a lot of times as Christians or people of faith, they feel like it's their job to pontificate upon other people what they should be doing. A lot of times we just need to shut up and listen. Shut up and listen to people's heart. My buddy David Rozzo showed me a video. I forget what movie it is, but it's I think it's Danny DeVito giving a talk to somebody, and he says, as soon as you try to turn a conversation, right? As soon as you try to twist it over to selling your faith, right? As soon as you try to twist that conversation, you've lost everything about connecting with that human being. Sometimes you just need to listen to that person and have them pour out their heart to you, and just listen to them. Don't try to save them. Don't try to you're not the giver of the light. I always tell my brother, like, oh, dude, that guy must be the giver of the light. Someone who can't just be quiet, listen. They got to tell you how to fix all your problems. Just, you're not here to save people, dude. You're not the giver of the light. Let God save people. Just love people. God will take care of the rest. 200 cups of coffee. Are you this invested in collaboration? So when it comes time to collaborate, are you 200 cups of coffee into it? And so he's actually talking to a nonprofit coming into the city, right? They were coming into St. Louis, and he asked the nonprofit, like, hey, what do you think should be done here? Have you met with the groups? He said, yeah, we met with them, but we haven't made a decision yet. We're not 200 cups in. He said, 200 cups? What are you talking about? He said, well, we don't even decide what we're going to do until we've spent time with enough people in the community to have 200 cups of coffee, 200 sit-downs, 200 conversations, so we can actually understand the problem. And then when we understand the problem, think what they think we should do, what their suggestions are, 200 different conversations, 200 cups of coffee, now we make a move on whether or not we're even going to get in. We don't even decide if what we're going to do yet. Are we even needed? I thought that was huge. Are you that invested into collaboration? Are you 200 cups of coffee invested into collaboration? Or are you just a think for yourselfer? Like my industry's I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and we're gonna raise a bunch of money. As I'm saying that, I'm looking at the tour that I did for the As You Are tour. That was my idea. I didn't have one cup of coffee with the communities that I was going into to see if that's what they thought was needed. I just said, yeah, man, we're going to do this tour, As You Are, right? We're going to bring churches together. It was kind of like this, right? Because I believe that's what the church needs. It needs to stop worrying about denominations and start loving each other so they can love everybody else. But I need to be 200 cups of coffee invested into the collaborations that I work on. Maybe people are looking... many people are looking for an ear. We already did that. I must have skipped the 200 cups. The word gossip. Oh, this is super, super interesting. The word gossip is used in the Bible as in the original Hebrew. It's pistodistas. 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 It's like a whisper. It's like an onomatopoeia. It sounds like it's said, right? So the actual Hebrew word is pistodistas. Dastes. And it sounds like a whisper, right? It sounds like a filthy little word. And gossip is one of those things that I think we all fall to, especially us in the church world. And the example was given, like, sometimes we disguise it in, I don't know if you guys heard, but so-and-so needs prayer because of this. Okay, yeah, we all should pray for her because of this. There's actually a comedian that does a comedy skit like that, and it's freaking hilarious. He's like, he says, you all heard my grandson needs Jesus, right? Because he's been sleeping around, so we need to pray for him. It's like, dang, you gotta put, like, no one needed to know that. Just pray for my grandson, would have been fine. So we get sucked into this gossip thing. One of the cool things was, I think he actually refers to a lot of gossip tearing down organizations, and I don't know if he references John Eldridge, but next week's book, Wild at Heart, definitely references John Eldridge because he wrote it. Waking the Dead's another awesome book to read that I'm going to read 2 weeks from now. We are the people best equipped for difficult conversations. I think because Christians are called to forgive. right? And called to love other people. It's part of our religiosity, right? That kind of makes us the best equipped for difficult conversations. But if we're not practicing those things, then we can't. I mean, we can't even have conversations with ourselves, much less sit down and organize a conversation between the African American community and the chief of police and the church organizations and try to get everybody to conversate, right? Obviously, they did it, and they did it pretty well. However, I'm saying the church as a whole can't do that, and that's a problem. Distance demonizes. This is a really cool quote. From afar, it looked like a monster. When it got closer, I could see that it was not. When it got even closer, I could see it was a man. When I got face to face, I could see he was my brother. That is a really, really cool quote. When we have distance, and this applies to political right now, when we have distance with people who think differently from us, it demonizes. We can't understand. And the more that we don't talk and we don't conversate and we don't have dialogue, the more distance we have, the more demonizing we see other people of other groups. I thought that was incredibly insightful. The church is not a zero-sum game. We are not competing for members, and we are not against one another. I think this is one of our fatal flaws as churches today. We compete against each other for members when that's not the case. Like, it should be same team. And I won't mention names because I'm trying not to do the gossip thing. There were two churches down south that used to bag on each other a lot. And it was the members of each church. They were like, oh yeah, over there, they doing this. And then, oh yeah, because they're doing this over there. Ha ha, yada yada. And it was like this big competing thing between members of two churches. And they were joking about it. But to be honest, like, when it was going on, it was really uncomfortable because I'm a new believer in Christ. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, you're tearing yourself apart. Like, that should be the same team. Like, if they get more people, if a church blows up and becomes a mega church, you could be like, nice, awesome. There's more people that love Jesus. There's more people who aren't going to hate other people, right? That's what it should be. But instead, we can't even figure out how to love each other. So, Bob's your uncle. Bob is my uncle, by the way. Sometimes bright ideas grow in the spaces between. The brightest ideas grow in the spaces between. This is two different things. One, I want to bring up Simon Sinek. He talks about brilliant ideas come from talking to other people. He says when you go to have a conference meeting, everyone leave their phones on their desks and show up 5 minutes early and just have the conversations that used to happen in the workplace, because brilliant ideas happen in those spaces. That's where today I actually sat in a principal's, not office, but waiting for a principal because I read at schools. So I sat there waiting for a principal, and I sat there for about half an hour with no phone. I left my phone in the car, and I was actually thinking about Simon Sinek and the spaces between, and I was just looking around trying to come up with food for thought, things that I could, like, that's where ideas happen. And if I'm constantly on my phone looking here, the spaces, there's no spaces in between anymore. Now I'm constantly feeding my brain. It's interesting that Greg Holder says the same thing here. And by the way, I love that I can reference books that I've read at the beginning of the year and come back, and it's amazing with all the people writing books. Like, there's hundreds of thousands of books. Everything's woven together and connected. If you guys haven't started your own book reading journey, I suggest you do it because your brain will freaking explode. That was pretty much it for the book, The Genius of One. I have never came across a church other than the Well in Fresno that I think is 100% on point with their theology and mission for what they're trying to do in the world. And those two churches, if you're in Fresno, you need to go check out the Well because they're doing amazing things. And if you're in St. Louis, Missouri, you need to go check out the Crossing, because I've only been aware of this church for a couple months, but I'm very impressed with their theology and their pastor and what they're trying to accomplish. They've taken on a big, big mission, and it's pretty Canarly with a K. I'm going to leave you guys with this because I need this this quote for my ending quote. Oh, first off, next week I'm going to read Wild at Heart by John Eldridge, one of my favorite authors. And then my next week's schedule, a couple shoots in, let me pull it up just so I can tell you. A couple shoots, another hub shoot in San Jose. I got a shoot in Oakland, and then one in San Francisco, so I'm doing a lot more production stuff. I have a meeting, supposed to shoot a music video. The week already happened and I'm late and it didn't happen, but I'll tell you about it in the next video. So I met with them. I did some social media training with Sutter Hotel down in Sutter Creek, and that's what I got going on next week. I'm going to leave you guys with this quote. One of my favorite quotes, and I know I've used it before this year, but I'm going to bring it back. My buddy David Razzo was talking to me. Shout out to David, just got a huge promotion for the Boys and Girls Club. He is now the director of his region. I didn't ask a lot of questions. She gave me some crap about not listening to her. I wasn't really paying attention. But I'm going to leave you guys with this. Reverse. I was talking to my buddy David Razzo, and he was mentioning sometimes we need to get out of the safe harbor. And this is something I told him a few years ago. I said, bro, you're in the safe harbor. You're in the safe harbor, you're in shallow waters, and it's nice, right? But you need to get your butt back into deep water because you can swim. And I know there's sharks out there, and I know there's huge waves, and I know it's rough, but no sailor was made in the safe harbor. You need to get out and go. He moved to Boston, and that was almost 3 years ago. So that was 3 years ago I gave him that talk. 3 years later, I replaced him in the safe harbor, and I've been hanging out in the safe harbor for a good 3 years now. I've been in my hometown. I've been relaxed. I've been putting down some foundational work for my asset column, you know. And he gave me a call the other day, and he was like, dude, I love you. That's why I'm going to tell you this. You're in the safe harbor. You've been in the safe harbor for 3 years. You need to get out of the safe harbor and get to some deep water. So I'm going to read you guys a quote. One of my favorite ones. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you did not do than by the ones that you did. So throw off the bow line, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sail, explore, dream, discover. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching. I will post another video either later on tonight because I got some work to do, and or tomorrow because, like I said, this was a little late. But I appreciate you guys.
Joanne, what's going on? Later.